January 2026 was the month the sky began to bleed. It started with auroras appearing in places they should never be. Deep violet lights dancing over the deserts of Egypt and the skyscrapers of Singapore. To the public, it was a beautiful anomaly. To the Shorai Council, it was the sounding of the death knell. Our planet's magnetic field, the invisible shield that protects us from solar radiation, is collapsing. Faster than any scientific model predicted, the North and South poles are wandering and the magnetosphere is thinning into nothing. Without it, the sun isn't a source of life. It is a laser that will strip away our oxygen and boil our oceans within a decade. The great thinning has already begun. Satellite networks are being fried by solar flares and the ozone layer is shredding like old lace. We are standing on a world that is becoming a radioactive desert. But humanity does not accept extinction. The Shorai Council has authorized Project Firmament. If we cannot rely on the Earth's natural magnetic shield, we will build a mechanical one. Not a satellite, not a field, but a physical structure. A skywall. A massive planetary-scale grid of hyperconductive carbon nanotubes is being launched into the upper stratosphere. Imagine a birdcage made of diamond and steel, wrapping around the entire globe at an altitude of 60 miles. This is the most ambitious engineering project in human history. We are no longer living on a planet. We are turning the Earth into a ship. But as the first ribs of the skywall lock into place over the Pacific, we realize that the sun isn't our only enemy. Something is watching the construction from the dark side of the moon, and it doesn't want us to finish the cage. By the spring of 2026, the construction of the skywall was no longer a secret. It was the only horizon humanity knew. From the streets of London to the villages of the Andes, people looked up to see a sky that was being stitched shut. The Shorai Council's Firmament project didn't just build a shield, it changed the very nature of our existence. The skywall is composed of trillions of hexagonal tiles, thin, hyperconductive sheets of graphene and synthetic diamond. When the sun hits them, they don't look like a cage, they look like a second silver sun that never sets. Life under the steel ceiling is a study in sensory deprivation. The deep blue of the atmosphere has been replaced by a shimmering metallic haze. Because the wall must deflect 90% of solar radiation, the natural light on Earth has dimmed to a permanent, eerie twilight. We are living in a world of artificial noon, but the psychological toll is only half the story. The skywall had to be more than a shield. It had to be a lung. With the magnetic field failing, the solar winds began to rake the upper atmosphere. The wall acts as a physical barrier to keep our oxygen from leaking into the void. We are effectively living inside a planetary-scale greenhouse. Inside the Shorai command hubs, the data is grim. The heat trapped between the Earth's surface and the skywall is rising. We've traded the threat of radiation for the threat of a global pressure cooker. The oceans are beginning to release ancient CO2 at an accelerated rate, and the weather wizards of the Shorai Council are desperately installing massive cooling fans, miles-wide turbines, into the wall's structure to vent the heat into space. Yet despite the heat and the dim light, a new culture is rising. The undershed, a generation of children who have never seen a cloud that wasn't filtered through a carbon nanotube grid. To them, the sky isn't a limit, it's a ceiling they helped build. But as the final quadrant of the wall began to close over the Atlantic, the construction drones reported something impossible. The shadows we saw on the moon weren't just watching, they were moving. A fleet of unidentified, non-reflective vessels has taken up orbit just outside the wall's construction zone. They aren't attacking, they are waiting. It's as if we aren't building a shield to keep the sun out. We are building a cage to keep ourselves in. August 14th, 2026, the day the sun tried to reclaim the Earth. Deep within the Shorai Council's solar observation deck, the alarms didn't just beep, they screamed. A Carrington-class solar flare, the most powerful eruption ever recorded, had just broken the surface of the sun. A billion-ton cloud of magnetized plasma was screaming toward Earth at 3 million miles per hour. In the old world, this would have been the end. The power grids would have melted, the satellites would have fallen like burning rain, and the atmosphere would have been scorched. But in 2026, we had the skywall, seal the quadrants. The command echoed across the global network. As the plasma hit the upper atmosphere, the skywall didn't just deflect it, it absorbed it. The trillions of graphene tiles began to glow with a terrifying, blinding neon blue. From the ground, it looked as if the entire sky had turned into a massive, flickering television screen. The air itself began to crackle with static electricity. Every piece of metal on the planet, from kitchen forks to car frames, began to hum with a low-frequency vibration. Inside the wall's control nodes, the heat was becoming unbearable. The silicon glass structures we built to hold the firmament began to soften. We weren't just fighting radiation, we were fighting the kinetic energy of a star. For 12 hours, the Earth was a pressurized oven. Outside the wall, the temperature reached 10,000 degrees. Inside, the Shorai cooling turbines were spinning so fast they began to disintegrate, but the wall held. For the first time in history, humanity had looked into the eyes of a sun god and refused to blink. But as the solar storm began to fade, a new anomaly appeared on the deep space scanners. The solar flare hadn't just hit us, it had illuminated something else. Behind the wall of plasma, the scanners picked up a massive geometric shape, larger than any city, parked in the Earth's L1 Lagrange point. It wasn't a flare, it was a harvest ship, waiting for the skywall to fail so it could siphon the Earth's core. The sun wasn't trying to kill us. Something else was using the sun to crack our shell. The solar storm had passed, but the silence that followed was far more terrifying. As the glow of the skywall faded back to its metallic silver, the Shorai Council's long-range sensors confirmed the nightmare. The geometric shape at the Lagrange point wasn't moving. It was the Siphon, a megastructure of unknown origin, designed to extract thermal energy directly from a planet's core. We realized then that the magnetic collapse of 2026 wasn't a natural event. It was a softening of our defenses, and our skywall. It wasn't just a shield we built to save ourselves, it was a barrier that was now standing in the way of a cosmic predator's meal. Under the steel ceiling, the atmosphere of Earth began to change. With the Siphon ship hovering just outside our reach, the skywall started to vibrate at a frequency that humans could feel in their bones. It was a sonic siege. The harvesters were using low-frequency gravitational waves to try and shatter the graphene tiles of our shield. In the cities below, the undershed generation began to report the gray sleep. Thousands of people were falling into a coma-like state, their brainwaves syncing with the vibration of the wall. The Shorai Council's lead neurologist, Dr. Aris Thorne, made a chilling discovery. The skywall, while protecting us from radiation, was also acting as a giant antenna. The harvesters weren't just trying to break the wall, they were trying to hack the humans inside it. Every hexagonal tile was now broadcasting a signal directly into the subconscious of every person on Earth. It was a recruitment drive for a world we couldn't imagine. Surrender the core and join the infinite, the message whispered in our dreams. Project Firmament was becoming a prison. We were trapped in a silver cage watching the sky for the first crack to appear. The Shorai Council had to make a choice that would define the species. Do we keep the shield up and slowly lose our minds to the frequency? Or do we drop the wall, face the harvesters, and risk the sun burning us to ash? As the first hairline fracture appeared in the sky over the Atlantic, we realized we were running out of time. The siphon was beginning to pull, and the Earth's crust was starting to groan under the pressure. The fracture over the Atlantic wasn't just a crack, it was an invitation. As the Siphon ship engaged its gravitational anchors, the skywall began to groan under a force it was never designed to withstand. The Shorai Council's command center was a symphony of red alerts and failing systems. Dr. Thorne's gray sleep had reached 40% of the population. We weren't just losing our shield. We were losing our minds to the frequency of a predator that had been harvesting worlds since the birth of the stars. If we hold the wall, we die as puppets, Thorne's voice crackled through the comms. If we drop it, we burn as men, we have to choose. In a moment that will be etched into the memory of every undershed survivor, the Shorai Council did something no one expected. They didn't drop the wall, they inverted it. Using the massive cooling turbines as makeshift thrusters, the Council synchronized the energy of the solar flare still trapped within the graphene tiles. We turned our shield into a weapon. The skywall didn't just vibrate anymore, it screamed. A massive planetary-scale pulse of concentrated electromagnetic energy was fired upward, directly into the heart of the Siphon. For 3 seconds, the Earth had two suns. The Siphon ship, caught in the feedback loop of its own gravity well, didn't explode, it imploded. The geometric nightmare folded in on itself, vanishing into a localized singularity that left the sky over the Lagrange point hauntingly empty. But the cost was absolute. The skywall, our only protection, shattered. Billions of tons of glowing carbon nanotube shards began to fall back to Earth like a rain of diamonds. As the first breath of raw, unfiltered solar wind hit the upper atmosphere, the silver sky vanished, replaced by a horizon that looked like liquid glass. We had saved the core, but we had lost our ceiling. The magnetic field is still failing, the radiation is coming, but as the people of Earth woke up from the gray sleep, they didn't see a cage. They saw a sky that was blue for the first time in a year. We are no longer the shielded. We are the glass horizon generation. We are living on a countdown, building the next generation of deep crust cities before the surface becomes uninhabitable. But we are doing it as ourselves. The harvesters know we are here now. The signal has been sent. The Earth is no longer a hidden garden, it is a fortress under construction. This is Shorai Vision. The sky is falling, but for the first time we can see the stars. Subscribe to join the resistance. Our story doesn't end in a cage, it ends in the light.